Okay, how many of us are watching the Olympics? Yay! Any favorite? American women hockey gold, yes. Any other favorite moments, people, things? Chloe Kim, yes, very much so. Curling? Curling. Okay, I'm enjoying this tremendously. I'm gonna skiing. Okay, it's a little bit hard to hear up here. I will say Elisa Liu's incredibly, overwhelmingly joyful free skate. Oh my gosh. Like every video that pops up, I just watch every one of them. Maxim Naumov with this very, very moving skate, and after losing both of his parents last year in the horrible plane crash. So many stories of athletes coming back after major injuries that they thought might be career-ending. I think I've heard at least 4 of those now. I love seeing athletes from different countries who just finished competing against each other, hugging each other in celebration, like the joy and the sweetness of that. Okay, everyone, Hillary Knight, the star of the U.S. women's hockey team, who proposed to her girlfriend and is now engaged, which is better than any gold medal. She's got 11 of them, so she could say that. I love watching these incredible athletes do these really incredible things. I wind up sort of gasping. My poor wife has seen me look at this one, many, many times. There's always that moment where you're sitting there on the sofa going, it looks so effortless. I wonder if no, you can't do that. Zero chance. And I know the curling thing is funny because I feel like it also spawns all those videos of people with brooms in their houses and like a Roomba, trying to sweep. So everybody gets very, very creative with their attempted living room Olympics. And there was a wonderful comment I saw on social media somewhere this week, with a suggestion. In order to get a true representation of each country's athletic skill, the Olympics should randomly select citizens to compete, like it's jury duty. Who's next on the balance beam for the US? Is it Simone Biles? No, it's 39-year-old electrician Dale. Wow, he does not look confident. So on a totally different note, this week in the Torah, Moses receives instructions from God for the building of the Mishkan, the dwelling place for the divine presence that will carry the divine through the desert over the course of, they don't know yet it's going to be 40 years, but it'll be 40 years. So if you didn't already we've read the story before, you may remember parts of it. If we didn't already know, you would think, what's the building list for materials that you need to construct a portable sanctuary that the divine is going to live in, that we can somehow schlep with us through the desert? I have probably constructed too many IKEA bookshelves in my life. I tend to be practically minded about, some kind of boards, something maybe a little better than an Allen wrench to put it together with. But the list that God transmits to Moses this week on Mount Sinai, while the Israelites are very impatiently waiting below, the list actually takes up the entire week's portion. For those of you who will be here tomorrow morning, the entire thing is a shopping list. And it actually spills over into next week as well. Gold, silver, copper, that seems reasonable enough, right? It's going to be a fancy sort of mishkan. Blue, purple, and crimson fibers, acacia wood, which, of course, the Israelites just have on them, lapis lazuli, and dolphin skins. It's the best detail. Everybody loves talking about what on earth with the dolphin skins. So 2 full weeks of details, not only of the materials they're going to use to construct this mishkan, but also the garments that the priests are going to wear while serving God in this mishkan. And then the 3rd week goes into the very detailed elements of the rituals they will perform with what type of animals and where the blood goes. It's a little bit gruesome and very fancy at the same time. So God somehow expects the Israelites, this raggedy band of people who have just escaped from slavery after 400 years, wandering in the desert, to come up with this tremendous list of riches. They have taken with them the skills that they learned in building all these crazy monuments and pyramids and things for the pharaohs. We do know that they have taken with them some materials, some of which they have borrowed or, in some cases, stolen from their Egyptian neighbors at God's suggestion. It's okay. I don't think, well, anyway. I think we're beyond the statute of limitations. I feel like, I'm always speaking in front of a bunch of lawyers. I'm very aware. So then God says the beautiful line, Ve'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham, and they, the Israelites, will make me this mikdash, this sanctuary, and I will dwell among them. That's an amazing promise after all of this shopping list and requests. So 10 chapters later, 3 weeks later, the reading is very long, after all these extensive instructions and descriptions and an unfortunate interlude with a golden calf, Moses finally explains to the Israelites this full list, right? God has transmitted it to Moses, and then eventually Moses transmits it to the Israelites. It takes a while. And then calls on the Israelites to bring what they can. It's amazing in this moment, after all the times the Israelites complain along the way about leaving Egypt, about not having fish, about not having cucumbers, about not having enough graves. The Israelites love complaining about things on the way, but they don't complain here. They just start bringing things. And it says, all the men and women whose hearts moved them to bring anything for the work that God, through Moses, had commanded to be done, they brought it as a free will offering to God. Everyone brings what they can, big or small, valuable or not, to build this home for the divine. Some of what they bring is practically necessary, like the large poles and beams that support the thing or that will be used to carry it. Some of what they bring is more about beauty and decorative qualities, which isn't physically necessary, but it's on God's list, and I'd say it's spiritually necessary. This is the tradition of what we call hidur mitzvah, the beautifying a mitzvah. Like we could fill a commandment just in a very plain way, in the most basic way possible, but we understand that doing it in a way that's a little bit lovelier, that's a little more elevated, can make it feel more meaningful. So, for example, Shabbat candles could simply be whatever tea lights have been sitting at the bottom of your kitchen drawer for the last several years. That would fulfill the mitzvah, that would fulfill the commandment. But by having candlesticks, by having somebody you want to honor being the person to light the candles on behalf of your family, your community, that's hidur mitzvah. It uplifts it, it elevates the experience. So back to our Olympics. Some of the gifts these athletes are bringing are expected. They're the ones they've been training for years, some cases for decades. I would say for their entire lives. Some of them that actually is less than decades, so I should have put it in the other order. It amazes me even more when there's like a 15-year-old who I feel like their biography is longer than mine. But some of them are bringing unexpected gifts in addition to these things they've been training for. American athletes have been speaking up about injustice in the United States. And that is definitely not expected of them. North Carolina State Senator Michael Garrett wrote a beautiful, long post on Facebook this week. I'm going to share it at some point, so we'll find a way to get that out there, about his experience of the Olympics this year, watching with his 2 young children. I'm going to read you an excerpt from this. It's beautiful. This is a bit of a long excerpt, but it's a very long piece, but bear with me. Amber Glenn won gold for this country in figure skating. She is the first openly LGBTQ woman ever to skate at an Olympic Games, I'll just add that we know of. And she used her moment on the biggest stage on the planet to say that her community is going through hard times and that she would keep using her voice because politics isn't something you get to ignore when it's your rights on the table. She won gold for America and then had to disappear from the internet because the threats from Americans became too dangerous. She won gold for us, and then she had to hide from us. Let that sink into your bones. Chloe Kim's parents came to this country from South Korea with almost nothing, and she has given us 2 gold medals and a lifetime of pride. And she said the question of what it means to represent the country at this time hits pretty close to home. Michaela Schifrin, one of the greatest skiers who has ever lived, had a Nelson Mandela quote already pulled up on her phone because she knew they'd come for her too. And then there's Rich Ruohonen. He's a 54-year-old personal injury lawyer from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, 6-time Minnesota Attorney of the Year, who spent more than 4 decades chasing the Olympic dream. He tried out 6 times. 6 times he came up short. Gesundheit. And this year, at age 54, a group of teammates young enough to be his kids asked him to join their team, and he finally made it to Milan as the oldest American ever to compete in the Winter Olympics. He drives the team minivan. That's not his, Olympic role, but, he drives the team minivan. He cooks them eggs before games. He set his law office email to auto-reply, "I am out of the office playing in the Olympics." And when reporters asked him about what's happening back home in Minnesota, he said, where federal agents have killed 2 American citizens, this man who waited his entire life for this moment, who had every reason to protect it and say nothing, looked into the camera and said what's happening in his state is wrong, that people's constitutional rights aren't being followed. And he said, "We love the US. We love what the flag is and what it represents." Athletes representing countries with corrupt and dangerous and destructive leadership have always had this choice when they have this kind of broader platform. They have worked so hard to bring a particular dazzling gift to a particular competition, and few people would fault them for focusing entirely on that. But many of our Olympic athletes, most of whom have not had the experience of such a public platform to speak from before, most of whom have never been attacked publicly, certainly not by their own president and vice president, for saying what they believe, they are still bravely speaking out, bringing unexpected gifts to their communities, gifts that will not win them gold medals, but are winning them lots of admiration. Most of us will not be doing a perfect triple axel on any ice anytime soon. Most of us bring gifts to the world that are less flashy, but we all have the gifts we know about that we regularly share with the world, and gifts that may feel unexpected or new inside us. The word for gift in this part of the Torah that we're reading, the name of the portion is Terumah. And Terumah it's a complex sort of word for gift. One of my teachers liked to say that Hebrew words are like suitcases that you have to unpack. There are multiple meanings to everything. Terumah can refer to multiple different kinds of contribution, including required gifts to the building of the Mishkan, things where they actually said every adult has to give a half a shekel. But it also means gifts that come from pure free will, purely from whatever the generosity of the heart of the person just makes them decide to give. And these are the things that the Olympic athletes are bringing. There's the part that they're expected to be doing this week, and then there are some gifts that are beyond the scope of what they were expected to be doing over this past week. And those gifts are clearly being offered in a spirit of generosity and care. Something we know profoundly in the Jewish community, in the LGBTQ community, in the immigrant community, in most minority communities, is that we all have deep worth, despite voices trying regularly to convince us otherwise. That it is part of our responsibility to ourselves and to each other to be vocal about our gifts and the gifts of others, and knowing that the gifts that we bring to the world are not always the gifts people expect. It takes all of us. It's going to take all of us, with all of our gifts, the ones that people see and the ones that people don't, to build a sanctuary where the divine can dwell. Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. May our gifts create the divine spaces that we need. Shabbat shalom.